Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, long-overdue talks. President Park will sit down with the leaders of the ruling and opposition parties this week to press for more action on bills related to kickstarting the economy. One step forward, one step back. A new report holds up a mirror to the Korean economy. Manufacturing and trade are going strong while other sectors struggle to keep pace with the nation's development. And in Hong Kong, the leaders of the pro-democracy movement stepped back from plans to hold a two-day referendum in what was to be the next step in their campaign. Daybreak begins now. Hello and welcome. It is 6 o'clock on a Monday morning here in Seoul. I'm Scott Thompson, filling in for Mark Broome, and you are tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye will hold long overdue talks with the leaders of the ruling and opposition parties this Wednesday after giving a policy speech on the budget at the National Assembly. The presidential office of Cheongwon says the meeting will include the leaders, floor leaders, and policy committee chiefs of both parties. President Park is expected to press them for prompt passage of her government's economic revitalization bills and for next year's budget bill. This will be the president's second meeting with both party leaders since September of last year and her first with the floor leaders since July. And speaking of talks, there are growing questions about whether North and South Korea will hold high-level talks in the coming days as scheduled. This after South Korean activists flew anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border over the weekend. Attention now shifts to the reaction out of Pyongyang, which had repeatedly warned of grave consequences for such actions. Chae Yu-sun has more.
Despite strong resistance from progressive civic groups in Seoul and South Korean businesses at the Inter-Korean Kaesang Industrial Complex, conservative activists in South Korea sent some 20,000 anti-North Korea leaflets across the border late Saturday.
We have decided to openly send the leaflets to show the public that brutality and violence cannot stop the dissemination of truth.
While Pyongyang hasn't yet reacted to the latest leaflet launch, it had warned of military action and significant damage to inter-Korean ties should the South Korean government fail to stop the activists. Acknowledging the leaflets do nothing to improve inter-Korean relations, Seoul on Sunday reiterated its position that there are no legal grounds for stopping the launches out of respect for the constitutional value of freedom of expression. A Unification Ministry official, however, added that the authorities have and will intervene if necessary to ensure the safety of South Koreans, either because of North Korean threats or an internal clash resulting from the leaflet launch. Experts here in the South predict the North could either carry out a provocation or walk away from a scheduled round of inter-Korean talks, demanding Seoul come up with a way to prevent further launches. Seoul had proposed October 30th for the talks. Others say that even if the high-level talks occur, the leaflet issue will likely become a bone of contention between the two sides. Chae Yu-sun, Arirang News.
It appears Seoul and Washington will maintain a joint decision-making process in their revised civilian nuclear energy pact. Citing diplomatic sources, South Korea's Yonhap News Agency reports the two sides are negotiating the thorny reprocessing and enrichment issues for the revised agreement, which should replace the current one by March 2016. Seoul wants more autonomy on the matter, while Washington is reluctant to allow it, in line with its non-proliferation policies. In that regard, the two sides are reportedly considering easing some restrictions on Seoul's decision to reprocess fuel for research and development. The foreign and defense ministers of the two countries noted significant progress was made in negotiations at their recent 2+2 meeting in Washington. Korea's parliamentary speaker Chung Eui-hwa is in Japan for talks with top Japanese politicians today, including Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. The topics up for discussion during his three-day visit include ways to resolve various historical issues stemming from Japan's colonial rule of the Korean Peninsula, as well as how to advance the two countries' bilateral ties. The visit comes at the invitation of the Speaker of Japan's lower house of parliament. Chung's talks with Prime Minister Abe are scheduled for later this Monday. Now, Korea is on top of the world in certain economic sectors, but is falling behind in others, according to a new report. And as our Kwon Sewol reports, the gap between the two could be a stumbling block for the country in the future.
Korea is performing well in manufacturing and trade, but is still a step behind in quality of life and labor conditions, which could eventually hold the country and its economy back. The Korea International Trade Association's annual report, based on data from around 170 sources in various economic categories, was released on Sunday and shows the country's biggest strengths and weaknesses. The manufacturing sector continues to do well, as Korea shipped the largest number of mobile phones in the world in 2013, and its semiconductor sales and ship orders were the second highest in the world. Automobile and steel production landed in 5th and 6th place. On the trade front, Korea was the 7th largest exporter last year, had the 9th biggest overall trade volume, and the 13th largest trade surplus. Korea also ranked 7th on this year's Fortune 500 list, with 17 Korean companies on the list. Among the 17 was Samsung Electronics, the world's #1 smartphone maker, which saw its brand value go up a notch from last year to 8th place, and Hyundai Motor Group, the world's 5th largest automobile maker, which went up 10 spots to 43rd. Asia's 4th largest economy is also a powerhouse in the R&D and financial fields. However, the social and labor sectors are still far below par for a developed nation. Korea ranked in 41st place for quality of life, down from 34th last year, and Koreans worked the second most hours per year of any country on the list. Korea's female labor participation rate stands at just 50%, and the nation's birth rate is among the lowest in the world, ranking 168th out of 171 countries. The Trade Association attributed Korea's uneven economic development to its rapid economic growth, adding the gap between certain sectors needs to be narrowed to achieve more stable growth. Kwon Sewol, Arirang News.
North Korea's labor productivity is more than 30 years behind that of South Korea's. That's according to a report by the Hyundai Research Institute. It says North Korean workers produced about $2,600 worth of goods and services in 2012, which is similar to the figures South Korean workers produced all the way back in 1980. The report also shows that the gap in labor productivity between the two Koreas widened from 7-fold in 1990 to 21-fold in 2012. It's now been nearly 200 days since the Sewol ferry sank in waters off Korea's southwestern coast, and 10 victims remain missing. Underwater search efforts for them continue to this day, with their families waiting in agony. On Sunday evening, those families sat down for the first time together to decide what to do next. They held a vote on whether to continue with the search operation for the 10 who are unaccounted for, or whether to start the process of raising the vessel to the surface. Families of 3 missing passengers could not take part in the meeting, but were represented by a proxy. The poll was held behind closed doors due to the sensitivity of the issue. Their decision is expected to be announced sometime today. A man in Bulgaria who was paralyzed from the chest down is now able to walk again following a cell transplant surgery. But while some doctors have described it as a breakthrough that could open a new chapter for disabled people, others say it is too soon to celebrate. Kim Min-ji has more.
Darek Fidica, a 38-year-old man from Bulgaria, is able to walk again after the injuries from a knife attack that left him paralyzed 4 years ago. He was once unable to feel his legs, but now he can slowly move them with the help of leg braces, and he can even drive a car. Surgeons in Poland took nerve cells from his nose and transplanted them into his damaged spinal cord. The olfactory cells, specialist cells that constantly renew themselves, appear to have prompted the spinal nerves to regrow and regain their function. Before the landmark operation, Federica had shown no signs of recovery despite months of physiotherapy. But now, just 3 months after the surgery, his left thigh muscle is starting to grow, enabling him to move his hips. The BBC, which broadcast a documentary about the procedure, described it as a breakthrough, saying that if further developed, it will result in a historic change for people with spinal cord injuries. However, others in the field are reluctant to be too optimistic about the procedure, saying that more research is still needed. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Time now for a look through the international headlines we're following this Monday morning. For that, we'll turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Scott. We'll begin in Hong Kong this morning, where protest leaders have canceled a vote they had organized to gauge where demonstrators stood on the next steps of their pro-democracy protests. The electronic vote organized by the three main groups represented was to take place Sunday night and Monday, but leaders of the Hong Kong Federation of Students, Scholarism, and Occupy Central with Peace and Love called off the ballot hours before it was to take place, saying too much disagreement over the wording and value of the vote had remained. In an email statement, they apologized and said there was not enough consultation with the public. The move that was to encourage unity instead put to light the tensions that remained. Following an offer by Hong Kong's #2 government official, Chief Secretary Carrie Lam, to submit a report on the public's concerns about Beijing's political reform framework, the protesters were to vote on whether they endorse this move and whether they believe changes should apply to city elections in 2016, of the Legislative Council, and to the chief executive polls in 2017. An 18-year-old woman in Brisbane, Australia, is undergoing testing after falling suspicion of having Ebola. She was placed under isolation at the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital after developing a fever on Saturday. She and her family had moved to the Australian city from Guinea some 11 days earlier. Her family members have self-quarantined themselves at home. This as the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Samantha Power, is on her way to visit all three West African countries hardest hit by the Ebola outbreak to raise a call for a heightened global response. The World Health Organization said on Saturday that the number of known cases has exceeded 10,000 and that the number of deaths is nearing 5,000, most of those coming from Guinea, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. Boko Haram militants have reportedly kidnapped some 30 young people in northeast Nigeria over the weekend. A local village chief in Mafa village, some 50 kilometers east of Maiduguri, told reporters some of the children were as young as 11 years old. This means some 90 people have recently been taken by Boko Haram militants, excluding the 219 schoolgirls who were captured last April in Chibok of Borno State. Suspected militants are also said to have killed at least 17 people in Borno State last week, despite the announcement of a ceasefire with the Nigerian government. Boko Haram has been waging a bloody insurgency since 2009. And finally, most of Europe's largest banks would be able to weather a financial crisis. This according to the European Central Bank on Sunday, which unveiled the results of a highly anticipated stress test on the region's 130 biggest banks. The ECB said 25 of the banks had failed the landmark stress test at the end of last year, but that most have since plugged their capital holes. It said the most problematic banks were found in Italy, Cyprus, and Greece, though they only had $12.7 billion in funds to raise. The test comes ahead of the ECB's greater supervision of the banks next month.
Korea boasts a strong film industry, currently the 7th largest in the world. Today, we focus on where those movies are being shown here in Korea, where multiplexes are adapting with the times and people's preferences. Our cultural correspondent Park Ji-won reports on their success at home and abroad on Industry Insight.
According to the Korean Film Council, more than 80% of the 333 movie theaters across the nation are multiplex theaters. And of those multiplexes, more than 40% are CJCGV branches, the #1 movie theater chain in Korea, followed by Lotte Cinema. CGV opened Korea's very first multiplex in Seoul in 1998. Since then, it has brought in a number of innovative features, including the nation's first 3D and 4D screens, as well as Korea's first premium screen called Gold Class in 2001.
The cost for this premium seat is 3 times higher than a normal ticket, but you can enjoy free snacks and beverages, as well as this spacious and comfy sofa where you can relax and enjoy the movie.
Another key word of their success is cultureplex. CGV branches don't just offer customers premium movie watching experiences. They also provide a mix of things to eat like gourmet popcorn and things to see like exhibitions and even busking performances.
CGV provides better membership benefits compared to other movie chains. There are also a lot of restaurants nearby, and it has a good concession menu.
Lotte Cinema is another major multiplex operator, taking up about 35% of the market. Recently, Lotte Cinema opened Asia's largest multiplex movie theater at Lotte World Mall in southern Seoul, with 21 screens that can accommodate 4,600 moviegoers.
It offers premium facilities with a lot of amenities. The interior is modern and clean.
The new theater also has the world's largest projection screen, which has been recognized by Guinness World Records.
Based on the success here, Korea's multiplex chains have advanced into the global market.
About 200 million movie tickets were sold in Korea last year, meaning one person in Korea watched more than 4 films a year, on average. This number is higher than the U.S. figure, so we can say Korea's movie theater industry has pretty much reached full saturation and is seeing its limit. That's why CGV and Lotte Cinema are focusing on expanding their presence in foreign markets.
CGV opened its first foreign branch in Shanghai in 2006. Today, the company has 31 theaters throughout China, 16 in Vietnam and 1 in the U.S. It also has a management contract to operate 12 theaters in Indonesia.
It's really about the movie-going experience, the premium experience of sound, screen, seat, as well as a cultureplex model. Ultimately, those things will work abroad, and that's absolutely part of our strategy. Now, in addition to that, what we hope to do longer term is really focus on the Asian content.
Lotte Cinema also advanced into the global market in 2008, starting in Vietnam.
We opened a theater in Vietnam in 2008, 2 years earlier than in China. Now we are the #2 movie chain in Vietnam, and we aim to be #1 by 2018. By then, we hope to have at least 60 branches in Vietnam and in China, with a goal of raking in some $300 million in annual revenue.
Both CGV and Lotte Cinema say they are focused on China and Southeast Asia for the initial phase of their global investment. But ultimately, they want to expand elsewhere based on things that haven't worked for them here in Korea. Both hope that in the coming decades, their branches that spread throughout the world rake in more revenue than those based here in Korea. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2014 KB Financial Star Championship, which is the final major event of the KLPGA. And after an incredible 4 days of the event, it was the 19-year-old Kim Hyo-ju who came out on top once again. Now, with the teen sensation battling with Park In-bi and Baek Yu-jung throughout the 3rd and 4th round of the event, it's Kim Hyo-ju who claims the KB Financial Star Championship title after finishing off with 12 under par overall to claim her 3rd KLPGA major of the season. Not only that, with the victory, Kim also clinches the top season's money list in the KLPGA, despite a few more events left in the calendar. Meanwhile, despite finishing off in 2nd place at 11 under par overall, Park In-bi is set to return to her #1 world ranking once again, as she hopes to hold on to that title for a longer period of time. And moving over to Sunday's V-League action, this time some exciting finishes on the day, starting off in the men's league where the Hyundai Capital Skywalkers faced off against the Korean Air Jumbos in Cheonan. Now a back and forth match as Hyundai Capital took the first and third set, with Korean Air taking the second and fourth set, forcing a decisive fifth set. Hyundai Capital's Liberman Algamez puts up 36 points, but Korean Air's Michael Sanchez matches him with his 36 points as well. But Shin Young-soo helping him out with 15 points of his own as the Korean Air Jumbos take the final set 15-13 and a 3-2 victory. Meanwhile, over on the Women's League, the IBK Altos taking on the Hanguk Life Insurance Pink Spiders. IBK's Destiny Hooker puts up a game-high 29 points, but the Pink Spiders have 3 players on the team scoring in double digits, including Rachel Rourke's 19 points as the Pink Spiders sweep IBK in 3 sets, 3-0. Now, some rivalries in sports are so big that there's a term used to name the matchup, like the Real Madrid and Barcelona matchup is called the El Clasico. And for KBO's Nexen Heroes and the LG Twins, their rivalry is called the El Nexico. And starting today, the two teams will square off in the second round of the KBO Playoff Series. Now, after the LG Twins eliminated the NC Dinos in 4 games, they're set to face off against their longtime rivals, the Nexen Heroes, in a best-of-7 series, with the winner facing off against the Samsung Lions in the Korean Series. While the Nexen Heroes have a better regular season record, the Twins' offense have been on fire, as Woo Gyu-min is set to start for LG against Nexen's Henry Sosa in Game 1, set to take place later tonight at Mokdong Stadium. Now moving over to Japan this time, where Game 2 of the Japan series between the Hanshin Tigers and the SoftBank Hawks took place last night, with Oh Seung-hwan helping the Hanshin Tigers in Game 1 for a 1-0 series lead. But in Game 2, it's Lee Dae-ho who helps the SoftBank Hawks get a good start to the game as he launches a solo shot in the 4th inning of the game for a 2-0 lead. With the Hanshin Tigers holding on to win the game 2-1, his home run was the difference maker here, as the series is now tied at 1-1. And from Korea to Japan to the U.S., where the 2014 World Series is currently taking place between the Kansas City Royals and the San Francisco Giants. With the Royals up 2-1 in the series, the Giants lineup came up big in Game 4 to tie the series at 2 apiece. Despite the Royals taking an early 4-2 lead after the 3rd inning of the game, the top of the Giants lineup sparks a rally, including Hunter Pence, who went 3 for 5 with 3 ribbies and 2 runs scored, as the Giants rally back to win this game 11-4. Meanwhile, Game 1 starters to take the mound in Game 5 as James Shields takes the mound for the Royals and Madison Bumgarner for the Giants. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. It's a very cold morning. I mean, once you step out the door, you will notice much colder air this morning. Well, last night's light rain dragged down the daily lows for this morning, so be sure to dress warmly before heading out. But we'll have lots of sun throughout the day in many regions. And daily lows will not rise that much. Top temperatures will be remaining below 20 degrees Celsius across the nation. So typical late autumn weather will continue today. With that, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. Now, the low in Seoul kicked off at 7, then the daytime high in the capital will be topping out at 17, while Daegu and Gwangju climbing into 19, and Busan will be rising to 21 this afternoon. And on to other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon will be making it to 17, and Dokdo will see highs of 13, while Mount Keungang only climbs into 7 later in the day. And similar weather pattern as today's will persist through the week. Now that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
And that's going to do it for now. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.